If you watch any amount of content on this channel, you know that I'm a Nike fan. I have a soft spot for Nike running. I always have, and I will always come back to the brand, no matter what else I'm running in at a given moment. But even I will admit, if you look at Nike Running's current offerings, there's not a lot to get excited about. If you scroll through the Nike Running category on Nike.com, there's just a lot of fluff there. There's just not a lot that's really exciting or innovative or frankly that good if you scroll through there. Nike's not unique here. All the other major running brands, they also have a lot of fluff in their product lines they could use from a lot of pruning. But I think the difference for all the other brands currently in early 2024, there's a lot of excitement about at least a few models across racing and training. But you come back to Nike and there just isn't. Outside of the Alphafly 3 right now, there's not a lot of buzz going on about Nike other than some of the leaked shoes that we've seen. Additionally, Nike corporate has been getting hammered as well over the past 6 to 8 months. Back at the end of last fall, early winter, Nike's earnings call did not go very well and Wall Street hammered them. Their stock price tanked quickly. And out of that, they announced a $2 billion cost-cutting procedure that they're going to do over the next 12 months. Earlier this spring, we also saw Nike leadership, mainly the CEO, acknowledging that they went too deep into direct consumer through Nike.com and they completely neglected wholesalers and specialty stores, specifically in running retail and running specialty. They completely ignored them, and they're going to kind of go back on that and go back to what made Nike running so great way back when. And then most recently, Nike announced a huge round of layoffs, 740 employees being laid off of the HQ in Oregon. And personally, people that I know that have either worked at Nike or know people that work at Nike, seems like everyone has either been laid off or they're in a new group with new management, and everything is really chaotic at Nike HQ right now. And you can kind of see that in their product. And lastly, specific to Nike running, Adidas released this shoe last September at Berlin. And with the release of the Adios Pro Evo 1, I would argue that Adidas has now taken back the dominant position in running from Nike, a position that Nike had had really since 2017. So yeah, there seems to be a lot of chaos going on at Nike HQ right now, not just in running, but really any product vertical. But the thing about Nike is they have a lot of smart people and they will innovate themselves out of this predicament. Now, they seem to be restructuring some product families, especially in running, to give themselves the foundation to move forward. But it also seems like it's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to everything that's been going on the past 6 to 8 months. A few weeks ago at Nike's big on-air event in Paris, where they released all of their Olympic kit and products, as well as they released the Nike Pegasus Premium, which there'll be a card on the screen and a link in the description to my video talking about that shoe, Tony Bignell, who is the VP of Footwear Innovation at Nike, gave a lot of different interviews, and he said the same thing in a few places. Now, the place that really picked this up first was Runner's World UK. I'll put a link in the description to the article that talks about all of this stuff. But in the interviews Tony gave, he talked a lot about the future of the Nike running line. And one of the big things that he spent a lot of time talking about is that he wants to make it a little bit more simple for everybody. And what does that mean? And one of the big themes that Tony was talking a lot about across all the interviews and conversations that he had that were covered, not just the article in Runner's World UK, is that Nike sees their running line is really structured around 3 key heritage silhouettes or product families. And that is the Pegasus, the Structure, and the Vomero. Now, what's interesting here is that I would argue that the Nike Pegasus has been the foundation of the Nike running line for many, many years, definitely since 2017, probably before that, to the point where I made a long video, a 40+ minute video about this. It was the 3rd or 4th video I did on this channel, where I traced the evolution of the Nike running line from 2017 through early 2023 via the Pegasus. So if you're interested in that, there'll be a card on the screen and a link in the description to go into that. But I would agree, the Pegasus is the foundation of the Nike running line. But what's interesting here is they're also including the Structure and the Vomero. Now, both of those models have been on the periphery of the Nike running line for many years. The structure has always been around, but it's never really been in the forefront of the conversation. The same for the Vomero. Things were different maybe 20 years ago when motion control and stability shoes were much more in vogue within mainstream running. The structure was right there side by side with the Pegasus. And the Vomero, until about 4 or 5 years ago, really always was the Vomero volume or plush shoe that was the volume trainer that worked with the Pegasus. It was never meant to be a replacement for the Pegasus. But the fact that Nike is now retooling Nike's running line around these three models is quite interesting. And the thing that they're really defining here is that these are all just different types of cushioning for everybody. With the Pegasus at the center of the everyday running line, Nike is beginning to look at these as types of cushioning. So the Pegasus becomes the responsive cushioning, the cushioning that really works for everybody. The Structure becomes the structured cushioning option, and the Vomero becomes the plush or the maximal cushioning option. Now, plush is a word that Nike has always used in connection to the Vomero product family. And Tony said something else, that across these three shoes, they have 85 years of heritage. And what he's saying there is the Pegasus is on version 41. The Vomero is on version 17, and the Structure is on version 25. These are shoes that have been around a long time. That's 83 years. Obviously, he was including new versions of the Structure and the Vomero, Structure 26 and Vomero 18. That gives you 85 years. But Nike is really retooling the running line around these three heritage silhouettes. And something that I'm finding very interesting, though, is that these two lines, the Invincible and the Infinity, are saying goodbye. Now, these shoes themselves are not going away. I'll get to what's happening with them. But as far as the product lines and the naming, everything that I've been hearing through the leaks over the past year or so, especially recently, is both these product lines are ending as far as names, which is very interesting because I would say to a Nike consumer of the past 4 or 5 years, both the Invincible and the Infinity lines have much more brand equity than I would say Structure or Vomero really does. Long-term Nike runners, maybe not so much, but definitely where we are right now, I would say Infinity and Invincible definitely do. But these names seem to be going away. Now, again, everything seems to be changing quite quickly at Nike right now. And a lot of this, as I said, seems to be a bit of a knee-jerk reaction. So maybe these lines will come back. But as it stands right now in end of April, early May 2024, this is where we are. And these lines are going to go away in favor of going back to the core heritage lines of Pegasus, Structure, and Vomero. What's more important is Tony also announced that each one of those heritage silhouettes or product lines is also now going to have 3 tiers. There will be a standard, a plus, and a premium tier for every one of those product lines. Now, Nike's not said this anywhere, but the way that I see it breaking down based on the product that we've seen released, mainly the Peg 41 and the Peg Premium, plus a lot of the leaks, is that standard is going to be for everybody. That's the shoe that everyone can get and use, and it'll work well. Plus seems to be a little bit more performance driven, and premium seems to be more technology driven. You're going to see the latest, greatest tech. Not necessarily performance, but you're going to see a lot of tech there. And we saw that again with the Pegasus Premium. Now, from a consumer standpoint, I don't know if this simplifies anything from a product line. If you look at a grid wall on Nike.com of Nike running shoes that are in these tiers, does it really simplify things? I would argue that probably not. But from a marketing standpoint for Nike, there is something that this does simplify, is that now you could say that the standard is going to be this base US dollar price, plus is going to be a little bit more, premium is going to be a little bit more than that. So now there's obvious tiers to pricing, which will make sense. So from a consumer standpoint, you can see the more expensive shoe is obviously going to be better, more performance, more tech, whatever it is. Whether that's the case or not, that's something that a consumer can look at and see. And they can see clearly across multiple product lines or silhouettes now that that hierarchy is there across all of them. But Nike doesn't just make everyday training shoes. They make a lot of racing shoes as well. And I think the racing product lines are also going to move into this tiered system. Now, Nike hasn't announced this anywhere, but from what we've seen in leaks and stuff that's sort of out there in development, we are beginning to see that there's probably going to be tiers here. So in the racing product line, I think we're going to have what I would call the base tier, which is the current technology. That's your Alpha Fly 3, your Vaporfly 3, all of those current shoes, current foams, carbon fiber plate, all of that sort of stuff. And then there's going to be an elite tier, which will be your next gen technology, whether it's going to be next gen technology for performance or it's truly the next gen technology. And I have some thoughts, which I'll be doing a video on in the coming weeks, about where I think super shoes are going over the next 3 to 5 years. But again, from a marketing standpoint, from a pricing structure, you can put the racing shoes now into this and you can see that they're also more than premium or elite. And now the pricing structure begins to make a lot more sense here. Again, from a marketing standpoint, on a grid wall on a website, it makes sense. From a consumer standpoint, again, I don't know how much more clear this is. So if we take the categories of everyday running, training, and racing, which are really the core of Nike Running and the product that they make, and we begin to map this out as to where Nike Running's headed in 2024 and probably more into 2025, it's going to break down like this. So in the everyday category, if we take those 3 silhouettes, starting with the Pegasus, it begins to break down like this. We have the Peg 41, the Peg Plus, and the Peg Premium. Now the Peg Plus, until very recently, was known as the Turbo 4. Now, all of the leaked images we've been seeing of the Turbo 4 or whatever the next turbo is, especially recently, and there's a bunch of recent leaked images that show this shoe in detail, have called it the Turbo 4. In fact, the shoe that's being shown in the leaks as the Peg Plus actually on the outsole has Peg Turbo molded into the rubber of the outsole. That makes me think that this whole restructuring and tiered system is actually, again, kind of last minute, has come up in the past couple months, and again, feels very knee-jerk reaction. If we look at the Vomero lineup, we will see that there's the Vomero 17, there'll be a Vomero Plus, and a Vomero Premium. Now, for the Plus, I was saying that the Invincible product line is going away. It's not going away as far as a shoe, it's just the Invincible name is going away. Everything that we're now seeing about the Invincible 4, which again, until recently was called the Invincible 4, the next Invincible, wasn't called the Vomero Plus. This change, again, seems fairly last minute. But we have seen leaks of a new Invincible, an Invincible 4, and everything that is being discussed right now in the leaks is that that will be called the Vomero Plus. Additionally, we have seen another crazy shoe, a 60 mil stack height in the heel monster shoe in leaks. We've seen it on Conor Mance's feet a couple times now. We've seen it on some other Nike Pros. This is going to be the Vomero Premium most likely. Now, this shoe is rumored to be Nike's take on the Prime X from Adidas, but even more so. Lots of tech, lots of foam, and in fact, everything I've read about this shoe is people saying that this shoe actually makes Adidas's Prime X look like a mid-stack shoe, and it makes the current Invincible 3 look like a racing flat. If you find the leaked images of this, it looks absolutely ridiculous at 60 mil stack height in the heel, or could even be in the forefoot at this point. The shoe looks big. But this is where the Vomero plush cushioning product line seems to be going. And then lastly, with the structure and the structured cushioning, we currently have the 26 or the 25. We'll probably see a 26. There'll be a plus and a premium. However, with the structure line, I don't really know what the plus and the premium would be. My gut is that since the Infinity is going away, at least as a name, and the plus tier is more performance oriented, I do think there's opportunity here for a light stability Infinity replacement model within the Structure name. So the Structure Plus could be that replacement for the Infinity. But as far as what a Structure Premium would be, I really have no idea. Cushion stability, do we really need that? Is there anything really different than what the Invincible isn't already currently doing? So this brings into some question as to will every one of these everyday silhouettes or heritage silhouettes get all three of these tiers. Now, Nike also makes race shoes, and that's probably what most people are most interested in at this point from Nike Running anyway. And via the leaks, we have seen multiple confirmations that there is a Streakfly 2 coming. In fact, the most recent leaks, which you can find out there, show a pretty much production-ready looking shoe that could launch at any moment. So we know there will be this shorter distance racing Streakfly option. The Streakfly 2 does look like it has a full carbon fiber plate and should go now toe-to-toe with Adidas's Takumi Sen line, which honestly, as much as I love the Streakfly, I think the Streakfly 2 really needed to go that direction. But as far as what a Streakfly Elite would be, I really have no idea. Maybe they'll keep the flexible, non-plated version of the Streakfly, the one that we have currently had, as an option. I don't really know. But again, this brings into question whether or not every product line will get all the tiers. But for the Vaporfly and the Alphafly, I think it's obvious there's going to be an Elite tier here. And we've already seen this hinted at via the Alphafly. So back at the Tokyo Marathon, there was a ton of uproar and leaked information about a Alphafly 3 Elite, or the DEB 15 model. Now, I'll put a card on the screen or a link in the description to my Tokyo Marathon Super Shoe review, where I get into everything that we saw about this rumored Alphafly 3 Elite or DEB 15 model. But I think it was pretty much confirmation that that shoe's coming. Now, we've seen nothing about it since the Tokyo Marathon, but again, I'm sure it's coming. And with the Vaporfly, we've seen now leaked images of a Vaporfly 4, and it looks significantly different. So I would not be surprised also if there is an Elite level to that shoe coming out in the future as well. And why am I convinced that there will be an Elite level to at least the Vaporfly and the Alphafly? Well, again, it's this shoe. Adidas is crushing Nike with the Evo 1. And the Evo 1 is an evolution on the Adios Pro 3, which is a base model. And then Adidas made the Evo 1, which is the evolution of that, which is the one that's full-on performance, price is not an object, durability is not an object, just about performance and moving into the next gen. And I would argue that with the release of the Evo 1 back last September at Berlin, Adidas not only took control back in the Super Shoes story, but I think they created the next chapter in where we're going with Super Shoes. And again, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I'm going to make a video that will be coming out in the next couple weeks about this specifically. So if you're interested in that, subscribe. You'll see that pop up in your feed. But Nike has to react to the Evo 1, and I think the only way they can do that is with an Elite level to the Vaporfly and the Alphafly. Now, Elite has always been a name that Nike has used in very much the same way Adidas is using Evo or Evolution. Back in the Vaporfly 4% days, we had a Vaporfly Elite. And the Vaporfly Elite was really the next gen of the Vaporfly platform, which became the Vaporfly Next Percent 1. And I think we're going to see the same thing with both the Vaporfly and the Alphafly moving forward. They need to do lighter shoes that have next gen materials and really go toe-to-toe with Adidas and what they're putting out with the Evo 1. And now going to that training category down the middle of this has been a gap in Nike's running line for many years now. Traditionally, the Zoomfly has been here, and we have now seen confirmation that there is a Zoomfly 6 coming out this fall. We've seen official images of a production-ready version of that shoe, and there have been numerous leaks of a Tempo 2 that's been out there that's been rumored to be canceled, though given how everything is sort of changing for Nike running at this point, it could come back. I think anything's on the table at this point. So if we do see tiers in the Zoomfly, their Tempo training option, I think it's going to follow closer to the race shoes, which is what the Zoomfly has always done, and we're only going to see 2 tiers. So we would see the Zoomfly 6 as the base model, and then we'd see a Plus. I don't think it would be called a Zoomfly Elite. You would never see that. But a Zoomfly Plus makes sense, and that could be the Tempo 2 if that shoe comes back, or it could be something altogether different. Now, this Tempo training category is something that, again, has been a gap for Nike over the years, but if you look over in the everyday shoes, you could easily pull out the Pegasus Plus or the Vomero Premium and move them into that training category, and I think a lot of runners will be doing that. But as you can see here from all of these drawn silhouettes on this flow chart, there's a lot of shoes that still need to come out in 2024 and 2025. The other thing I'll say is that each one of these silhouettes on this are actually the actual silhouettes of the leaked images. So these are the real shoes that seem to be out there in development currently. So there is a lot of exciting stuff coming out over the next year or two for Nike. It's just a lot of it needs to make it to market for runners to get excited about Nike running again. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.